I like good mother. I brought all of them out except the aiguromatsu. That one sort of scares me. I'm afraid to touch it. It's special, Sara-chan. I don't know why it scares me. Perhaps it's because it's so old. I don't mean I think I'd break it. It's too strong for that. It's just... She shook her head. I don't know. She followed him into the tool shed. Mr. Ito smiled. You have respect. That good, Sara-chan. You understand tree, and tree will tell you when you may touch it. He lifted the ancient pine and carried it before him into the sunshine. As he walked the short distance to the Engawa, he said, Namu Amida Butsu. And then he set the bonsai gently down, and he said again, slowly and reverently, Namu Amida Butsu. Sara repeated it. Namu Amida Butsu. It sounded like a prayer. That means homage to the Buddha Amida, Sara-chan. Why did you say it, Mr. Ito? Ito always pray Lord Buddha in early morning, Sara-chan, and many times speak him during day. I offer him my work. Oh, Sara didn't know quite what to say. Maybe that's why your plants grow so well, Mr. Ito. Maybe. What are you going to do today, Mr. Ito? Fix gutter on tool shed. He propped his ladder against the little building. Cut dead branch off apple tree and chop for firewood. Check wires on young bonsai so not cutting bark. Take baby black pine from training pot and put him into pot for more right for shape. Why do you have to move him? Sara asked. It seemed natural to copy Mr. Ito in referring to the little black pine as a boy plant. Ito changed soil and look see what his roots are doing. If they grow too much, Ito cut back. He is healthy tree and, like all young things, he won't go too fast. It seems too bad to cut his roots when he's doing so nicely. Sara shook her head. Ito living long time, no better than pine what best. I do what must be done, make him strong, Sara-chan. I train him up the way he must grow. That sounds like something our minister said in church last Sunday. Wah, said Mr. Ito. Minister wise man. Sara! Her cousin Mary leaned out of an upstairs window. Are you doing anything? Can you help me? I need you desperately. Coming, Sara called. If I don't see you later, have a nice Sunday, Mr. Ito. Sunday was Mr. Ito's day off, and he usually took Mrs. Ito to visit their second son, Henry, at his truck farm in Mission. Mr. Ito bowed. You too, Sara-chan. Uncle Duncan and Aunt Jean were in the kitchen. Her uncle, still in his pajamas because it was Saturday, was reading aloud from the Daily Province, while Aunt Jean chopped candied peel at the big wooden table. Sara stopped to nibble. I learned a prayer from Mr. Ito just now, she said. A prayer? On a Saturday morning? What next? Uncle Duncan said. Well, said Aunt Jean, I suppose it's all right to pray on a Saturday. I mean, it doesn't really matter what day you say a prayer, does it? Put that way, I suppose that's so. What is this prayer, then? Namu Amida Butsu. He taught it to you in Japanese? Yes. Fine thing. What does it mean, then? It means homage to the Buddha Amida. Well, I don't care for old Ito teaching you heathen prayers. Uncle Duncan got very red in the face. You'd think he'd have turned Christian after 30 years in Canada. You know, Jean, I can't understand why the Japs don't assimilate better. They seem determined to hang on to all their old customs, even though they're Canadians now. They should behave like Canadians instead of carrying on all these antiquated ways. Such as playing the bagpipe on all occasions and eating haggis on holidays like you Scots? Aunt Jean asked calmly. Really, Duncan, I don't see the harm in it. Why don't you go on reading me the paper? Oh, all right. Well now, Uncle Duncan rattled his newspaper. Let's see. Oh, listen to this. There's a bad fire at the herring camp on North Galliano Island last night. 3 taken to hospital. What else? The Russians seem to be giving the Germans a run for their money. Oh, good Lord. That Mrs. McPherson over in Kerrisdale has had twin boys. How many does that make? 9. Aunt Jean poured the chopped peel into a big mixing bowl and then got some walnuts out of the cupboard. I hear their oldest is in North Africa in the Tank Corps. Nice boy, really, as I recall. Ambassador Nomura and his delegation are meeting Cordell Hull in Washington. Talk's going well. Good thing someone's discussing peace in this crazy world. There was a tea at Mrs. John Turner's to plan the next debutante season, and Mrs. Humphreys helped pour... What's a debutante season? Sara asked. A lot of nonsense, Aunt Jean sniffed. The Upper Fraser Fishermen's Association has given 3¼ tons of salmon to Britain. Trying to salve their consciences for cutting out the Canadian fishermen. I shouldn't wonder. Oh, Duncan, really now? They're as Canadian as you are. And Mr. Ito's sons were born in Canada, which is more than you can say. I think it's very nice that they're sending Britain all of that fish. I hear the British boats can't go out at all these days because of the German subs. Isn't George Ito involved with that association? He's one of their bigwigs. 3¼ tons. Sara tried to imagine it. That must be millions of fish. Do you think they send 1 fish for every person in England? It was nice to picture her father and mother all the way over in Peterstone, sitting down to a nice dinner of British Columbia salmon, pink and smooth, with Domino hovering hopefully in the background. She picked a raisin out of the mixing bowl. What are you making, Aunt Jean? Christmas cakes. And no more raisins, young lady, or you'll not eat your lunch. A warm, sweet fragrance rose from the saucepans on the stove. Are these Christmas cakes too? She asked. No, honey, those are Christmas puddings. I'm making several extra to send down to the servicemen's canteen with Mary. They're nearly done. Do you think Sergeant Daly has gone overseas by now? Sara asked. He was her favorite among the servicemen Mary had brought home to enjoy her mother's cooking. Aunt Jean winked at Uncle Duncan. Sergeant Daly. Now he was the farmer's son from Manitoba, or the arithmetic teacher from New Brunswick. A blush crept up Sara's cheeks. You know which one he was. He did those rope tricks. He came from Calgary and said he was a real cowboy. Oh, was he the one who promised to teach you to ride his strawberry roan? The one who nearly toppled my Royal Dalton figurine with his fancy tricks? Aunt Jean smiled. Nice boy. Reminded me of Mary's David. She stirred briskly. And speaking of Mary, you'd better run up and give her a hand. She's been looking for you. Sara was on the stairs when she heard a plaintive cry. She pushed her cousin's door open to find the room strewn with clothes, the bed unmade, and Mary peering into her mirror at a tiny pimple on her chin. Her wedding dress hung from the picture rail, its brocaded train folded on a hanger and swathed in protective linen. Her veil rested on a hat stand on the windowsill. She'd let Sara try it on the day before. A cloud of gossamer tulle fountaining from a delicate floral headpiece. "Oh, Sara," she moaned, "where have you been? I need you desperately." "Goodness, where do you want me to start?" "Could you roll up the curls at the back of my neck and make the bed when I take a quick bath? I'll be grateful to you forever. I promised I'd take over in the canteen at 11:30, and I'm running terribly late." "The puddings are nearly ready." Sara began brushing Mary's long, silky hair before winding it around the rollers. Just one of Mary's strands felt thicker than her own whole head of hair. Aunt Jean says hers would grow thicker in time. "Can't grow in too many directions all at once," she had said a few days ago. "You're getting so tall, and all your energy's going into that." Sara sighed. It would be lovely to have thick hair like Mary's. Maybe it would happen. One thing was certain, silky hair was hard to wind around rollers. She frowned. "It keeps slipping out." "Keep trying. It'll work in the end, Sara. I know it's hard, but practicing on mine will teach you how to roll up your own someday. You won't always be wearing braids. It won't be that long before you're getting all prettied up to go out with a boy." Sara laughed. She couldn't imagine going to all this trouble to go out with a boy. If he was anything like Jamie and Ernie, he wouldn't even notice. Mary shook her head. "Look at this room." "Keep still," Sara said. "Why have you got your clothes all over the place?" "I've been trying to figure out what to take on my honeymoon." Mary picked up David Lloyd's picture, which stood on her dressing table, placed carefully so that two reflections of David looked out of the mirror at her. "Oh, sweet, sweet David, why won't you tell me where we're going?" Sara laughed. "The bride isn't supposed to know. It's a secret." Mary smiled. "I know, and I guess I also know we'll have to stay somewhere nearby, because David won't have very long before he has to return to duty. And anyway, with the war going on, we can't go anywhere exotic. And all I really care about is being with him." Her eyes shone. "Thank you, little sister. You've helped me think things out." "Wait a minute. I'm not your little sister, and I haven't said a word." Sara pushed some bobby pins into the last curler. "Do keep still, or I can't do this." "All I know is once you came in, my mind cleared. And you're just as good as a little sister. It's just a help having someone to talk things over with. Jamie isn't interested in anything but boats." Mary twisted around in her chair and hugged Sara hard. "Oh, Sara, I'm so happy." Tears brimmed in her eyes. "I'm so lucky David Lloyd lived down the road and we met, and I love him and he loves me. So lucky he's stationed in Hong Kong instead of North Africa, where all the fighting is. So lucky he could get Christmas leave so we could get married and have a little honeymoon." She jumped out of her chair and danced Sara around the room, singing, "I don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to be wrapped up and warm in Dave's arms." They whirled around until they collapsed dizzily on the bed. Sara stared up at the canopy above, her head swimming. "I love your bed," she said. "It's so romantic to have a 4-poster with a canopy on top. In the book I'm reading, it says in the olden days they had curtains all around, and you could draw them to keep out the drafts. I'd love that. It's like being inside an Arab tent in the desert." Mary sat up. "Well, little cousin, I've just had a thought. After David and I are married, we'll have our own big bed in our own little apartment, and I won't be needing this one anymore. So here's my wedding present to you. The day I get married, this bed is yours."